The RV Show USA is brought to you by Flagstaff, Rockwood, building better RVs, making smarter RVers.
So I want to know, what is the most stressful part of camping for you? Is it the driving? Is it the setting up like I was asking? Is it the breaking camp going home? Is it the maintenance part of RV ownership? What is the most stressful part of camping for you? Post it in the comments. We're going to try and read some of them in just a few. All right, let me introduce you to our guests. First, from just outside of Atlanta, Georgia, he is the voice of the RV Show USA radio show program, a fellow RVer who has racked up hundreds of thousands of miles on the road with his RV, and he's one of the best blues guitarists on the planet, my buddy, Mr. Roger Hurricane Wilson. And then from the West Coast, we have lifelong RVers. They're writers. They're great storytellers. They're podcasters. They're correspondents for our show, the RV Show USA radio program. And, well, there's some folks who have perfected stressless camping. We have Tony and Peggy Barthel. So welcome, y'all. Appreciate everybody for being here.
Thanks for having us.
Pleasure to be here.
You bet.
Nice.
Oh, yeah.
Sure.
All right, good deal. Let's talk about it. Roger, why is camping, or why can camping be so stressful? Why do you think that is for so many people? And I'm sure you've had your share of stressful camping trips.
Well, usually when everything is going right, you're fine. It's just when something goes wrong. In my case, I was always a little different than the average camper, because I started out in a Class A motorhome, 31-foot Winnebago Brave, because I was hauling band members around, and I was going across the country from place to place. And a lot of times, if you're in a RV, you've got some time to stay. You stay in a spot for a while. But when you're a musician and you're on the road going from gig to gig, it's not like that. So usually, if something happens wrong, it's usually while you're moving. And the one stressful time, I think you and I talked about it, was when I blew an inside dual out in the middle of Texas, back about, I guess it was like in 2003. And I remember I was out, it was near Nacogdoches, Texas. It was out in the middle of nowhere. I mean, and we had to be down in Houston that night. And so there's no time to be wasted. I mean, if you're on the road and you're going from one place to another to a campground, you got a little time, you got a day or two, it's fine. But when you don't have any time, it's very, very stressful.
Yeah.
And so I remember sitting there, and back then there was no signal on the cell phone hardly. Oh man, it was, and my band members were great. I mean, they're great musicians when they're on stage doing the job. They're great, but when it comes to an emergency, all bets are off. It's
not so good.
I hate to say that, but it's the way it is. And they're good guys, but they just don't know. And so finally, I was sitting there on the side of the road, and I'd already made a bunch of calls and all this, and finally I was giving up. I just about laid down on the steering wheel, and I think I was just ready to put a mailbox out there and just live there, because that's what I felt like. And I guess God must have been watching over me or something, because I laid my head down on the steering wheel and not knowing what to do, and all of a sudden a big flatbed 18-wheeler came up to my left side, and he pulled up, and then he pulled in front of me, and then he went over to it was getting in front of the RV, and then he backed up, and all of a sudden the trailer started lifting back. He was coming to get me.
Yeah.
And luckily I was pulling a flatbed trailer with a pickup truck on it, so I had a 50-foot long rig, and we'd had a lot of the gear in the thing, so I had thought ahead and dismounted it and hooked up the trailer to the truck, and because I knew we were going to be moving fast. But anyway, this guy, he came over and he says, well, I heard the call back there, and this guy owned a shop about 40 miles back, and he was in this 18-wheeler about 80 miles back, and he got the call himself and came out there and got us. And so he took the motorhome, put it on the flatbed, and he says, just follow me back to the shop. And so here's my Winnebago Brave on a flatbed 18-wheeler, and I'm following him, and he was going about 90 miles an hour. I couldn't even keep up with him. He was all I saw was a cloud of smoke, and my RV was down the road. And here we are, me and the band members are in the pickup truck pulling this flatbed trailer to take it to the shop. And we got there, dropped it off, and then made it down to the gig in Clear Lake, Texas, near Houston. The next morning we come hightailing it back, and they fixed me up. They put the new tire on it, fixed the heat shield. You can't just have a flat tire without it taking the muffler out. So that's what happened. And the whole thing went. But I'm
so
sitting
your
in the
band
office.
members were not very helpful for you, not during that time.
Well, not really. I mean, they mean well. If you get them to do something, they might go do something. But other than that,
They
they're
could
like
play a
eating
song right on the side of the road.
Now they're eating a sandwich or something. I don't know. You know, they're just and it's even better if they just don't bother me because I know what I got to do and they don't. You know.
Yeah, get out of my way. Hey, let me jump over to Tony and Peggy. I guess that's what you guys talk about is taking the stress out of camping. Why do you think people get so stressed out about camping and RVing?
It's a combination of things. I think some of it is the buildup. A lot of times you make things in your mind and they're worse than they actually turn out to be in the real world. So that's part of it. And then it's the apprehension of, did we get everything? Did we pack everything? And we all camp in the civilized world. So it's usually more than
we need.
Yeah.
So what's the most stressful? I'm sure you've been asked this before. Peggy, what's the most stressful camping trip y'all have been on?
For myself, I was camping by myself with a group of women, and we had the 7-pin replaced on the pickup the week before, and they didn't do it right. And so it was raining, and I was all packed up, and I was ready to go, and I hooked the truck up to the camper, and I got in the truck and put it in gear, and it wouldn't go. It engaged the trailer brake, and I couldn't leave.
You were locked up.
And I was really stressed out, and it was raining and everything. And so the next day I wound up taking the truck over and having the 7-pin redone and going back in the rain and hooking the trailer up again. And then it was my first time backing into a space. So that was stressful. But the good thing was I was camping with a bunch of women. And so by the time I was backed into my space, they had drinks ready and handed
I was going to ask you, cocktails can make things like that go away. Now, you don't want to drive and have those cocktails, but so talk to me about, I want to know, why do we have to learn our lessons the hard way? Why isn't there an easy way to learn them? Is it just because we're so stubborn and bullheaded?
I think so. I think, people can tell you 100 times that you need to make sure that this is checked or that is ready to go. And until you experience it not being right, it doesn't sink in.
Well, it's like the thing when I was a kid, my mom would say, don't touch the stove, don't touch the stove. And you know what got me to stop touching the stove?
Touching the
stove.
Yeah, I think we can all relate to that. Roger, what do you do differently today? I've seen how you camp today, and you don't have a lot of stress when you camp. But how did you morph from this big Winnebago Brave and a band full of, a motorhome full of band members to what you do now? And it seems like you're a whole lot less stressed out.
Well, when you go from a 31-foot motorhome to a casita, that's a big change. But I worked my way down. I mean, I went down from the thing, started getting a couple of pull behinds. A couple of them got smaller and smaller. Was pulling it with a van, and it just got to be where I started traveling solo. The music business, the entertainment business has changed. It's a lot harder on the road now than it used to be, for musicians. I mean, they're really having a hard time. But the one thing about the motorhome, that one day I was telling you, when I got to Texas to the shop and I came back to get it, I asked it, and there's a lot of moving parts. And so what I do now, there's a lot less moving parts. But I asked the guys in the shop, I said, man, how did you guys find me on Friday afternoon, sitting out in the middle of nowhere? And they said, well, we got a running joke around here at the shop. I said, we know about 2:00 on a Friday afternoon, we're going to get a motorhome call. And these guys had it down. They knew it. And they came, and they said, we know what it's like to sit on the side of the road. So we came and got you because we know what it's like. And these guys were just salt of the earth, man. And we made it to our next gig, which was in Natchez, Mississippi the next night. So I didn't lose any gigs. I didn't lose any money. And I was very, very fortunate, but it wasn't worth putting up with that kind of stress, knowing whether you're going to make it or not.
So now you're in a little tiny casita and you're loving it. Tony and Peggy, generally speaking, what can people do, do you think, to stress less and enjoy camping more?
I think two things. One is checklists. Checklists really help. And there's so many ways to do that based on how your own mind works, right? You have to realize, for example, Peggy is more of a paper person and I'm a computer person. So we have lists on the phone of the things that you need before you go so you don't forget anything. I've seen people put like with cardstock and like a grease pencil or dry erase marker, that sort of thing. So it's you go the way, have all your ducks in a row. I also think the more you know about your RV, the more you're not going to be surprised by something.
I've learned you always have a plan B and C, because for me, plan A never works out.
Right. Flexibility is really important. You have to understand that no matter how well you've planned and how great your checklists were and how much maintenance you've done, something can still go wrong. And you just have to take a breath and just figure out what to do about it.
That's what I was going to say. Deep breath, slow down. It's when we speed up and hurry. We got to get there. We got hurry. That's when you make mistakes and you end up paying for it in the long run.